The state of California has effectively pushed out yet another oil refinery. Yep, 𝗪𝗧𝗔𝗬𝗦𝗧𝗔𝗕𝗟𝗏 Refinery announces intent to cease operations in 2026. All the nonsense that California has layered upon the oil and gas industry, it's kind of come down to that deal where if you tax somebody enough, you put enough regulations on somebody, they're going to split and go elsewhere. And that's exactly what we've got going on here. Hate to say I told you so, but yeah, let's get into it. Here we go. So this is a refinery that the owners, Valero, have basically put in play, and they said, we're exploring all of our options on these last two refineries we have in California that are in play. And they're basically saying, yeah, the one we said we're going to close down, we're definitely closing that one down. They've officially made that distinction. Watch a little video.
Optimistic after today's surprise announcement from oil giant Valero Energy. The closure of the Benicia refinery would be a loss of millions of dollars annually in revenue for this small town.
ABC 7 News reporter 𝗪𝗧𝗏 has more on the potential impact of the closure.
For a quarter century, the Valero refinery has been an economic powerhouse for the city of Benicia. But on Wednesday came a surprise announcement that it may close next April.
I would have been more prepared for a sale. I am surprised that they're suggesting a complete closure and ceasing operations. That is definitely surprising and distressing news that we heard today.
City manager Mario Giuliani says Valero generates millions.
What they're saying is that nobody wants to buy it. It's going to take a bunch of money to keep it going. Nobody else wants it. State of California doesn't want refiners in their state. They've just, gone down that road of push them out, push them out, push them out, push them out. And this is the end result. So this whole idea of, well, I wish they would have just sold to somebody else and kept going. Good luck with that, because that's just not happening. I mean, what Newsom's done and his predecessors have done, they just want to go all green. And this is how that works out. State of California, your funnel of gas refiners is ever eroding, and your gas prices have one way to go, and that is not down.
Of dollars in revenue, which are vital for this small town. But Valero made it known for some time its frustration and concerns with the high costs and strict environmental regulations in California. Giuliani says discussions are underway with state officials and Valero about what comes next.
It is the newest refinery on the West Coast. It produces a significant amount of gasoline for the California market. I cannot foresee a possibility where that refinery just ceases operation altogether.
In a statement to ABC 7, Valero confirmed that it submitted a notice to the California Energy Commission of its current intent to idle, restructure, or cease refining operations at Valero's Benicia refinery by the end of April 2026. California Governor Gavin Newsom responding to the news at a press conference earlier in the day.
Beginning last night, we had all hands, and we're in the process of addressing any anxiety that may be created or any market disruption that may be created by that announcement.
Giuliani says news of Valero's possible.
That guy just sets him up, knocks him down, and then goes, what happened? I don't get it. We're really working hard. We're really working earnestly to keep all of our, ducks in a row here. We're really working to try and keep the refinery. We're really working for the people of California. Meanwhile, the refinery says, boop, gotta go. We're done. We're out of here because of your policies. And then Newsom, what's going to happen?
Departure will impact the city's budget process for next year, which begins in May.
Look at that.
In addition to possible loss of jobs and revenue, is the impact on the city at large.
I think it would be a major hit on the city. I think it would very much look like Mare Island closing in Vallejo, and I am worried that the city of Benicia would eventually become the same.
Brittany Hodgkinson manages 𝗪𝗧𝗏 Cantina and Catering in downtown Benicia. Valero employees are a huge customer base, but she says the refinery is so much more, such as having a big role in fundraising for school events and youth sports.
Just hoping that somebody comes in and buys the refinery and keeps us going. That's about it. That's just my biggest hope. I got to stay optimistic.
Yep, that's all you can do. You can hope for things, but sometimes that's just not going to work. This refinery, it sounds like, unless there's some last-minute suitor, is going to jump in. I think they would have basically announced that, hey, we've got somebody coming in to take over, but it doesn't sound like that's happening. And, in all the articles that I've read, with all the other podcasts we've done, with the other refineries shutting down because of policy, because of regulation in California specifically, where you've got to have a custom blend gasoline for the state of California, because otherwise, the environment. Meanwhile, you got AOC and Bernie Sanders flying around on a private jet fighting the oligarchy. You know what I mean? This whole climate change thing, this whole thing, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Bunch of nonsense. Meanwhile, gasoline, which we are heavily dependent upon and will be for years and years and years to come, is getting shut down in California. So how's that working out? I mean, in what city officials are calling a significant transition for the city and community, the 𝗪𝗧𝗏 Refinery has announced an intent to cease operations in 2026. The city of Benicia said it was informed on Wednesday by the Valero Energy Corporation that its subsidiary, Valero Refinery Company, California, has submitted a notice from the California Energy Commission of intent to, and this is what we heard, idle, restructure, or cease refining operations. We're just going to idle it out. We're just going to let it set for a little bit, see what happens. No, they're not doing that. They're closing her down. Restructure. Okay, we're going to do this. We're going to do this. We're going to sell off. I don't know what they'd even do with the restructuring. Or cease refining operations. Boop, done. That's what they're doing. The city said it will work with Valero to seek clarity around the timeline. Other than it's a year from now, what else are you going to ask, right? Is that a year from yesterday? A year from a week on Tuesday? I will gladly pay you on Tuesday for a hamburger today. I believe that's how that went, right? Seek clarity around the timeline and scope of the proposed operation change while keeping the community informed about potential economic impacts to residents. All right, you got a one-trick pony in the city? And that is a refinery. When the refinery closes, yep, you got it. City goes bye-bye. But we've seen that a million times, right? So why is California so hell-bent closing down all its refineries? Because oil and gasoline are bad, and we need to go move everything to green. We need to move everything to electric, to green, to the Green New Deal, all that nonsense. And that's what it is, right? That's what it is. It's a bunch of virtue signaling nonsense. Because we're not getting there anytime soon. It's just not happening. China and India, a bunch of other countries, not really on board, right? See those memes of people going to India and looking at rivers, and the rivers are just literally chock block loaded up with garbage. And you're like, so California is going to have a different grade of gasoline that's cleaner, and all that crap is in the river? From a worldwide basis, not buying all this Green New Deal nonsense, right? This is a moment of significant transition for our city and community, said the manager of Benicia City. Their host, unfortunately, that is their host. Let's see if we got anything else. On this article, Representative Vince Fong, a Republican who represents California's 20th district, called the closure an example of Governor Gavin Newsom's failed leadership. This will be one of those, you'll have the COVID shutdowns. You will have, what else do we have? COVID shutdowns. We'll have how Gavin Newsom handled the wildfires. And then secondarily, you'll have issues like this. Over years, Gavin Newsom and, leading politicians throughout California have done this big press to get rid of oil and gas as an industry from their state. And it's had this impact where you're closing down a bunch of refineries. So it is failed leadership. But when Gavin Newsom goes to run for president, this is one of those multiple issues. I don't think it's going to be a primary one. The economy, loss of jobs, loss of population, that'll be out there. But the loss of refineries will be one of those underlying support for why you shouldn't vote for Gavin Newsom on a national level if it comes to that. In a lot of the news releases, they didn't really cover this. Valero Moll's shutdown of California refinery books a $1.1 billion impairment. I'm going to call it a loss because that's essentially what it is. We've been impaired by $1.1 billion, meaning forces have impacted them, right? Valero Energy Corp said it may end fuel production at its Benicia refinery northeast of San Francisco next year and is evaluating strategic alternatives for its remaining operations in California, trying to figure out what to do with their other refinery. Decision comes amid regulatory pressure in the Democratic state. Rival Phillips 66 working to shut down its Los Angeles refinery by the end of this year. Man, just one after another. San Antonio, Texas-based refiner Valero said in an online statement it had notified California Energy Commission, yeah, we heard about that, a combined pre-tax impairment charge of $1.1 billion was recorded for the Benicia and Wilmington refineries and is expected to be treated as a special item and excluded from first quarter 2025 adjusted earnings. But it takes a whack just the same, right? The amount includes expected asset retirement obligations of $337 million as of the first quarter. Benicia Refinery processes feedstocks into gasoline and diesel that meet California's blending requirements. Got their own special blending requirements. That's why your gas is so expensive, and that's why you've got, Newsom he tried to force the refineries, and he did, to keep on hand a minimum number of gallons of gasoline in reserve, because California doesn't really have the ability to import it from other states, because other states aren't making up their special blend, the special seasoning that is California gas. So it's a throughput capacity of 170,000 barrels per day. It employs over 400 employees. We understand the impact that this may have on our employees, business partners, and community, and we'll continue to work with them through this period. They're shutting her down. Overregulation, gruesome Newsom has put them down, and there's no other way you can look at that. You can say, hey, they weren't making money. They're bad business people. But that's not the case. It's the circumstances of which they're forced to do business under. They're at a point where they're like, you know what? No, we're not doing it. And, it's on a corporate level because a publicly traded company, right? So I believe it is. That's the deal. Closed. We're closing that one because it doesn't make any money. Whatever, or the long-term impact of keeping this one going doesn't meet our needs. We have concerns. We need to reimagine. We need to rethink. Well, they did that, and closed is the final word here. So we've got a bunch of California regulations that are kind of in play right now. However, the 3 regulations now face a congressional challenge under the Trump administration. On February 14th, the EPA said it would be transmitting to Congress the Biden administration's rules granting waivers that allowed California to preempt federal car and truck standards promulgated by EPA and the U.S. Department of Transportation. Ugh, what a bunch of stuff, right? What a bunch of stuff. Here's another comment I thought was interesting. This is from Oil and Gas Journal. Title is Valero to shutter at least one of its California refineries. While the notification to CEC presumably confirmed only the planned shuttering of the Benicia refinery, that's what we're talking about today, is just the one, Valero stopped short of providing any assurances regarding a commitment to maintaining ongoing operations of its other in-state businesses, which include an 85,000 barrel a day Wilmington refinery near Los Angeles. Valero continues to evaluate strategic alternatives for its remaining operations in California. And that's basically what they said at the beginning of this about a year ago. I think it was a year ago. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was October. I can't remember. You can Google it. You can look it up. It happened in the past, right? I have a podcast or multiple of them on that when this first happened, when Valero said, they literally came out and said, we are exploring all options for not only this refinery, but their other one in LA as well. And I took that as they're going to either sell them both or they're going to close them both. And I think they close them both because I think they do it in a stepped up process because you got less heat on you if you fire a whole bunch of people all at once, drag it out over time. Maybe it flies under the radar. Well, we got 400 people. They're going to get canned here. No, they're going to have to keep a bunch of people on, on the payroll, as they seize operations. Because, man, a plant this big, it is going to take a bunch of people just to keep it contained, just from a safety standpoint, right? Because this is a big, I meant to say big, not bad. This is a big refinery. It's a big refinery. And California is just hell-bent on shrinking its gas and oil platform. And they're doing a great job. They're going to get there. So meanwhile, everybody in India is just dumping a bunch of garbage in their rivers, and a ton of other countries, third world countries. Toss in the river. It'll be fine. It'll get carried out to sea. It'll be all good. Meanwhile, California is just, driving up the price of gas, forcing refineries to close, telling everybody, drive an EV, drive an electric vehicle. Meanwhile, in Los Angeles, all the EV stations are having all the, metal ripped out of them because a bunch of meth heads and fentanyl heads are just basically tearing out that metal so they can go get their next fix because somebody said, drugs are okay. You guys do your thing. Everything's going to be good. And that's how you get a situation where you can't really do the electric vehicle thing. You don't want to drive a gas car because it's so expensive. And just a bunch of policy, making like this that just keeps the cycle going. So at the end of the day, you want to make sure you vote blue because that's how you got in this situation. Misguided ideology about how to save the environment, impacting everybody. All right. That's it for me on this one. Thanks so much for being here. I'll catch up with you in the next one. Bye for now.